It's me, Dr. Dana Carson, Throwback Thursday. That's right, Throwback Thursday. I've been doing this 35 years. 35 this I'm celebrating my 35th year of ministry this year. And listen, if you want to support by sowing a seed, my team is asking for a special seed of $35 if you'd like to sow this for my 35th year of ministry. You can sow that out the goodness of your heart if you'd like to. But, man, on this Throwback Thursday, I'm going to be showing you a sermon about the attitude of productivity from back in my day. It's actually associated with one of my books, The Kingdom Change and Transformation. And that's a very powerful book, one of the most powerful, practical, transformative books that I've written. And so I want you to check this out. When we look at this definition, some synonyms, productive, fertile, fruitful, prolific, apply to the generative aspect of something. Productive refers to a generative source of continual activity. When one is productive, they are constantly producing. You know, people say, man, you never stop thinking stuff. You always got new ideas. You always coming up with something. Why don't you slow down? I can't because I'm productive. So you don't understand. See, I come up with ideas that can cause other folk that are around me to become multimillionaires. But the problem is they ain't thinking, and so they don't think through a seed I deposited in them. See, what productive people give other folk ideas. And if they would just become productive with the ideas, sometimes they hear the eureka. You know, I told people, eurekas are not planned, they happen. And see, so you don't plan out success, it happens. You get an idea and you start letting it germinate in your spirit and in your soul. And next thing you know, it causes things to happen. Most folk that are extremely successful, they didn't plan that success. If success is able to be planned, then we'd have more successful people. How many of you know you could follow a plan of success if you knew that it was going to make you successful? And everybody got a book to tell you how to make you successful. And it ain't working because there's more to it than just a plan. Look to your neighbor and say, you have to have an attitude of productivity. Come on, say, I'm catching this thing in my spirit now. I'm catching this thing in my spirit now. See, if you have the attitude of productivity, it doesn't matter what you have to work with. Are you with me? You know, listen, there are folk, you hear stories about them all the time. A year ago, they were homeless, living under a bridge, and now they're multimillionaires. They didn't have an address. They didn't have any credit. They didn't have anything, but something inside of them generated and caused and brought about and produced what they did not have. Look to your neighbor and say, that's what God wants out of my life. Fertile applies to that in which seeds, literal or figurative, take root. Fruitful refers to that which has already produced and is capable of further production. So, when we look at fertile, it applies to that in which seeds, literal or figurative, take root, such as soil. So, when we look at fruitful, it refers to that which has already been produced, a fruit, a full-grown fruit, but it comes also with the ability to produce a larger harvest. So what are you saying? I'm saying that in order to be fertile, your fertility has a lot to do with your soil. And then once you put your fertility in the right soil, it will produce a fruit. And when it produces fruit, whatever you produce ought to be the seed bed of greater productivity. You should not produce anything that only is unidimensional in its ability and potential. Whatever I spun out or create or generate ought to create something greater. Are you with me? Look to your neighbor and say, I got all kinds of potential in me. So now, when we look at prolific, means highly productive. That means highly productive. When we talk about productivity, look to your neighbor and say, kingdom people are prolific. Come on, tell your neighbor, say, I'm prolific. I'm highly productive. Now, when we look at productivity, opposed to just, and it's going to be right in the family of the definition of productive, but I want to look at productivity, the quality of being productive or having the power to produce. The quality of being productive or having the power to produce. In economics, it is defined the ratio, wonderful definition, the ratio of the quantity and quality of units produced to the labor per unit of time. So it's talking about maximization. Productivity is defined the efficiency with which output is produced by a given set of inputs. Now, here is the beauty, and this is what's so powerful about this kingdom principle, this text, and productivity. Now, productivity is defined as the efficiency with which output is produced by a given set of inputs. God puts in, now what do you pull out? See, it's not about accumulating more, it's about generating more out of what has already been deposited. You are deposited. You are not productive when you got to have more and can't do nothing with what you already have. See, a productive person maximizes the input through output. But if you have no output, you have no right to ask for greater levels of input. Look to your neighbor and say, watch yourself. Watch yourself. Show me what you're working with. Amen. Amen. Now see, this kingdom principle of productivity suggests to us that there is no such thing as no one with a deposit. There is no one that can say, I have nothing that God put in me. Are you with me? Thus, an increase in the ratio indicates an increase in productivity, ratio of input to output. Conversely, a decrease in the output and input ratio indicates a decline in productivity. Now, question is, in the thing that God has put in you, that's called input. See, let me give you just quickly. Organizations are predicated upon three simple components. Businesses, input, transformation, output. Care how you look at an organization, that's what it is. It's input, transformation, output. Raw material, we do our thing, that's our business, and then we output something of greater value. So now, God has put something in you in input. Now, the input has to go through transformation, and then transformation outputs something with a high exchange value. Now, and I'm going to say this prematurely because it just fits here. If you have sold your life to corporate servitude, you can never be an organization. See, God has called you to be an organization. You are supposed to be a living organism. See, God deposited in your business. He gave you some seed money. Y'all don't want to talk to me. Listen, he was the capital venturist. He put money in your business, and now he says, here, let me finance you. But the problem is what are you going to do with the deposit that God deposited in you? And you just stick with me. We're going to go some places tonight in productivity. Now, God makes the deposit. I know it's true. My deposit was public speaking, preaching the gospel. It was communication. It had to do with motivating crowds and pushing people. That was the seed he gave me. And he sold that into me raw. And I started off not understanding it, of course, because I wasn't saved. It wasn't until I got into Christ then that I realized the deposit of God. And he made that come clear. Then I had to take that thing and transform it to an exchange value that generated. Now, every last one of us have that kind of deposit in our lives. The question is, have you become a slave to money, or have you become an original organization? Stick with me. Look to your neighbor and say, God's calling me to be a production factory. See, my business is productivity. That's what I take stuff and transform it on the inside. I incubate things, and things come out of my life. And see, things are supposed to come out of your life, not just babies and relationships and love life, and the other things are supposed to come out your life. Now, productivity then, in a nutshell, speaks of producing the maximum outputs from your inputs. Now, everyone ought to be asking themselves, or should have asked themselves during this course of discussion about productivity, what is my input? What is my input? What is my input? See, because it's your input that can give you the output that has high exchange value. And see, the problem is you trying to look at somebody else's input and get paid off of it. Y'all ain't hearing me. Now watch this. Thus, we are productive when we take the raw input that God has deposited in us and we create valuable outputs. There is stuff that's in you that God deposited in you that people will find value in if you will produce it. Kingdom people should be the most prosperous, industrious people on the planet. We should always be moving forward. Now, I'm going to give you some principles that are kingdom principles that will assist you in be living a more productive kingdom life. But first, just as a basis for our kingdom understanding, we must understand that our King owns everything. The earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof. Cat on 1,000 hill belongs to him. All silver and gold belongs to him, and all souls are mine, saith the Lord. So I want you to understand there is no shortage in the kingdom. Listen, there is no shortage in the kingdom. There is simply short-circuiting. We short-circuit what the king wants to give us by not walking in and following kingdom principles of productivity. Now, knowing that our king owns everything, he does not owe anybody anything. So his finances are not tied up. He doesn't have to leverage his stuff. Are you with me? So it's available. However, we have to understand this. Please hear me. This is very important. Our king is faithful and just, not fair. Now, this fundamental principle messes a lot of folk up. We don't understand that he's faithful and just. The parable of the talents demonstrates his faithfulness and he's just. When it came to the man with 5 talents and 2 talents, he gave them the same exact reward. Listen, his expectation for the man with 2 was 4. The man with 5 was 10. The man with 1 was 1. Now, when the man with 5 produced 5 more, when the man with 2 produced 2 more, he said this: "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have shown yourself faithful over a few things, thus I will make you rulers over many," which meant 5, 2, and 1 were small deposits. So did nobody start off with abundance? So now he's faithful. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. He's just. He's not going to judge you in comparison to somebody else. See, what he wants from Carla is not what he wants from Juanita. What he wants from Juanita is not what he wants from Irma. So now, that means then, if they get in a rat race of competition, they're going to get in chaos and miss their productivity. See, that means then I can't start feeling like I ain't doing nothing because I'm not doing what Carla's doing. And I cannot get into these comparative analysis and saying so-and-so is doing this, so I need to do this. Because what happens then is I become frantic and I become dislocated from my input, trying to operate in yours. So that means then I have to understand productivity is not everybody living on the same level. Everybody can't have the same thing, but everybody can be productive. Am I making sense? So we have to understand this, that God will provide for us in his faithfulness, and he will be realistic in his justice by looking at ability. Now, this is what's positive here. Just powerful here. He said he gave every man according to their ability. Now, you have to understand, everyone does not operate on the same ability level. See, if you don't understand that, you're going to have self-esteem issues. You're going to ask yourself, why am I not smart as this one? And why I have not been as creative as this person? And then you're going to find yourself aspiring to pick up the skill levels of this person, which is not your ability. So you're going to start trying to be educated in something that's not your ability, because you're impressed with somebody else's ability. God has given you something to work out of your ability. Some folk gonna work up here, some folk gonna work here, and some folk gonna work here. But if you work in productivity, what you have will take care of your life and somebody else's. Now, if you are not having enough, you are not productive. struggle, you're not productive. If life is not giving you enough, you ain't generating it. Because kingdom people generate. We're not welfare citizens. We're not looking for folk to give us something. We're not looking for a break. We're not looking for, give me them 6 numbers, Lord, for a lottery. We're not looking for pulling the slot machine and that's it. Listen, that's not what we're looking to generate. Look to your neighbor, say, I want to generate. Say, I don't take freebies. I don't want freebies. I don't look for freebies because I'm too busy generating. See, let me tell you something about a generator. When you're a real generator, you tell other folk, give their gifts to somebody else who needs it. See, when you're a generator, you feel like you're walking in inequities when you're allowing people to give you stuff, when you know how to generate your own stuff. Why don't you get that to somebody that ain't generating? I'm generating, baby. I appreciate that. But it's a law, because to him who has, he's given more. See, and that's the reason when you are productive, you get more stuff in your life. And then folk want to know that ain't got nothing. Why he getting everything or why she getting everything? That's because they generate. Because generation begats generation. Poverty begats poverty. Broke folk get broker, rich folk get richer. You just have to decide which camp you want to live in. Every day you wake up, what are you doing? Are you generating or are you expecting? Are you making things happen or are you looking for a wonderful phone call? Are you creating an inheritance or are you waiting for somebody in your family to die that you didn't know about and give you an inheritance? Y'all don't want to talk to me. Kingdom people are productive. And I come to tell you tonight, everybody in here has the ability, if you tap into productivity, to create an economy and resources that can take care of an entire community. You! Ain't nothing different about you than Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Michael Dell, or any other major philanthropist. Nothing except they generated. Many of us with an education. That's probably the worst thing that could have happened to some of us with a college education. Because we got a college education and then gained an entitlement spirit. We thought because of our letters, the world needs to pay us. We need to get paid now because we pay tuition. And so don't realize we've been shaped to be lazy corporate slaves, locked into a fixed income, and we're just on a deceived welfare level. We have glass ceilings that we can never work our way beyond and above. And then when folk get tired and their businesses run its cycle and they want to cut folk, we're the first ones they cut because we have the higher salaries. Y'all don't want to talk to me. See, God never ever wanted you to be dependent like that. God wanted you to generate. Listen, everyone in here can generate income to take care of yourself and your family. Look to your neighbor, say it's in you. Now, when we talk about kingdom, we see that the Lord hurls his servants accountable. There's an accountability. And so we have to understand that when we're talking about the kingdom operation functions in the climate, and we've heard me mention these things of structure, service, sonship, submission, sacrifice. All of those kinds of things all of those different variables play out in your productivity. See, in the kingdom, there is structure. We have to have some structure to our lives. Some of us live so chaotic, we cannot be productive. Some people won't sit still to think. Some people are just so everywhere, you have no structure. And in the kingdom, it's structure, it's order. In the kingdom, see, it's about servitude. See, when you are being creative with what God gives you, whatever it is you're coming up with ought to provide a service for someone. See, in the kingdom, we produce things to bless other people, and as a result, we get blessed. We don't think about cheating people. We don't simply think about ways to make money. We don't think about ways to generate capital so that we can become purchasers. Are you with me? And that's the reason many of us miss kingdom creativity, because we start off with the wrong mentality and the wrong objective. We want to have money so we can vacation and not work. Kingdom people want to serve. Look to your neighbor. They tell me, so they want to serve, not take a cruise every other week. It's ridiculous. And people sell you with that stuff all the time. Put it on TV, these big old lavish houses with that look like, big old swimming pool, look like it's for a hotel, and they tell you this can be yours. You send in for this real estate, and you be like, oh yeah. And you get so hypnotized by that, you send in your $400-500 for a kit you don't ever open. And you want to know why you bought the kit. It wasn't for the kit, it was for the visual. Y'all don't like me, because some of y'all sitting with that stuff at home right now. I'm going to open it this year. I'm going to listen to them tapes this year. Sonship. See, here, when we talk about kingdom productivity, I'm just putting into your spirit some principles I've taught you about the kingdom and sonship. See, sonship, those that, as many that are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God. See, because in your productivity in the kingdom, you can't just come up with ideas. You have to also allow God to guide your steps. See, he knows how to lead you to places you couldn't get to on your own. Then it's about submission, because you have to rely on God's revelation, not yours. And so that means you have to allow yourself to become uncomfortable. Get out of control. Look to your neighbor, say, get out of control. And let God have the reins. And then the fifth principle, you've heard me talk about it in other contexts, is sacrifice. See, you can never become productive if you're not willing to sacrifice some things. The climate of the kingdom then is structure, service, sonship, submission, and sacrifice. And the content of the kingdom is authority and power. In the kingdom there is authority and power. Look to your neighbor, say authority and power. See, if I'm going to walk in kingdom productivity, I've got to walk in authority and power. Now, I don't know no other way than to tell you, okay, you can't be no poop butt. You can't be no little sissy. You can't be no little punk. You can't be no little chump. Listen, can't be no little pansy. Can't be no little prima donna. You can't be no little prissy. Listen, you got to walk in authority and power. If you are going to be productive, you're going to have to get your confidence and your courage levels up and understand that I stand with the authority and the power of the King, and that means life must yield to me. I'm sick of yielding to it. What? Now, you have to realize that God desires his people to serve him and his kingdom and not to be a slave to this world. Fixed incomes are traps by the enemy that locks you into permanent submission to the demands of this world through serving the God of money. Some of you can't do nothing you want to do because of your fixed income. You have to take it, be humiliated, do without, and you're calling that sacrifice. It ain't sacrifice unless you died for a greater. It's subjugation when what you are so-called going through and it doesn't have a greater benefit. That's subjugation. It's sacrifice if you're doing this for a period of time and this is producing something greater. But if it's just going to produce a lateral, or it's going to produce just the same thing perpetually, that's not productive. Look to your neighbor and say, that's not productive. What you have to realize is that you are bigger than your income. Your income should not make you. You should make your income. People constantly tell you you are worth this pay grade, and you believe it. And whenever somebody tell you you're worth $9, just know you're worth 90,000. Because whatever they pay you, they've already prospered off of you. I don't care how menial you think your participation is at work, whatever it is you're doing, they would not be paying you if it did not yield them a greater profit. So just think about it like this. If your job is just putting the round dial in the hole, and that's all you do all day and they pay you for it, then just understand the potential of being able to put pegs in the hole. Because somebody else did, and now they're paying you to do it at an exchange value. You have to realize that God's calling you to be an employer, not an employee. Come on, look to your neighbor and say, an employer, not an employee. See, you should lend and not borrow. Kingdom people ought not be slaves to paychecks. And you know it would be a disaster if some of us got laid off of our jobs right now. You lose your home, you lose your car, it'll send your whole life in a whirlwind. And you say, well, why? Because you're serving money and don't know it. If money can have those kinds of effects on your life, then you are in the wrong position. Thus, we must recognize that God has created us with the ability to be productive, and then we must desire productivity. Now, here are the laws of productivity, and they've been implanted in us since the very beginning. They're found in Genesis chapter 1. And we cannot say that these laws were no longer applicable in terms of God's expectations after the fall, because they're mentioned in other places outside of the garden context. Now, we understand that the type of situation that Adam had, we will never have on this side of the garden again. However, this type of mentality God commands. Now, if you're going to be productive, productivity requires a mentality. Everybody say mentality. An attitude. Now, here, when you see in Genesis chapter 1, and it says this, y'all ready? Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make man in our image. That's principle number 1, the principle of development. That's the law of development. God said, let us make man. The law of development. Then number 2, the law of dominion. It says, according to our likeness, let them have dominion. Now, sitlim. Dominion, radah. Dominion, radah, which means to dominate. Now, that means if you're going to be productive, let nothing master you, you master it. Make your world and your sphere your domain. Gain mastery over what God has given you. If your world is mastering you, you are not being productive. God said, take dominion. You're supposed to be happy in your domain. Whatever God has given you, business, money, family, home, territory, that's your domain. You let the devil know, I master this. So you have to learn to have the dominion over your domain if you're going to be productive. You don't let life become so stressful to you that you're going to quit. That says I'm not productive. 3, then it says, so God, it says, let us make him in our image. Let us make them in our image. Verse 27, God created man in his own image. Number 3 then is develop your image. Stop trying to look like and be like everybody else. Ain't nobody gonna pay you for being a copycat. People pay for originals. Folk don't want folk don't want copies. Even when people do original paintings, they're worth more than copies. That's the reason you can pay $300 for a Louis Vuitton purse and $40 for a copy. But always know the copy gonna tear up and it doesn't have a guarantee. Y'all don't want to talk to me. Now, you have to develop an image that is yours from God. Who are you? Not who other folks say you are, not who you're trying to make them think. Who are you? You've got to develop your image because your image is going to pay you. That's where your uniqueness lies. Are you with me? Look to your neighbor and say, image is everything. See, image has a lot to do with imagination. So, I need people to see me as me. And when I can develop my image, I can be creative in imagination. You need your own uniqueness. Who are you? Irma. Somebody needs to pay you for being Irma. Not Irma's mama. Do you understand what I'm saying? You've got to develop. Who are you? Now, image costs you something. It costs to be an original. Because folk got to get used to you. So that means then they got to learn how to relate to something they ain't never seen. But if you develop the right image, your image will become valuable and people want what you have to offer. So your image has in it the deposit of God. Let us make man in our image. You know, no man is made in the total image of God. That means there's a piece of him in all of us. So now you have to develop your image, what he's deposited in you. I can't tell you what's in you, but it's something in every last one of you. And if it's not anything in you, you're not saved. You've been regenerated. It has to be a deposit. See, but the problem is many of us say, well, it ain't nothing but a little bit. God doesn't give a little bit. Everything God gives you is undeveloped. You have to develop it. Look to your neighbor and say, you have to develop it. Then the next is, it says, and the Lord blessed them. Then you have to have a declaration. That means you have to say, I'm blessed. Barak means to kneel, means to bless. You have to say, I'm blessed. That's what you got. That's what your disposition has to be. I'm blessed. That means if nobody else likes me, I'm blessed. You got to like yourself. Look to your neighbor and say, you got to like yourself. Listen, I'm sorry you don't like me. But I can't sit around here and try to make Yvette like me because what she likes about me, Zawadi can't stand. So now then Olivia, she want me to be different than Zawadi. And so I ain't got time to be sitting around here trying to meet your expectations of what you like. All I can tell you is that I've been made in his image, and I accept that you've been made in his image, and we all got some uniqueness. And I don't know if you've come to the realization, but because I'm in his image, I am blessed.
Hey, listen. I know that message bless you. You can also have the message in its entirety. Just send in for the message in its entirety. You can get audio or video. And but don't forget, get a copy of this book, Kingdom Change and Transformation. Bless your life. Well, listen, that's all I have for Throwback Thursday. I'll see you next Thursday. Pray for me as I celebrate my 35th year of full-time ministry. God bless.
What's your first thought when you see a married couple arguing? Have you ever witnessed a relationship come to a sorrowful end because of differences, hurts, and pain? Maintaining relationships is not simple. Having a long-term healthy relationship is even more challenging. It requires wisdom, tools, and techniques just to verbalize how you feel in an effective, non-threatening, and productive way. Dr. Dana Carson has over 35 years of relationship guidance experience and has assisted countless relationships in person and in presentation. We all desire to have healthy marriages, healthy dating relationships, healthy friendships, healthy work relationships, healthy parenting relationships, and more. Sign up today for Dr. Dana Carson's Relationships Masterclass, The 4 Laws of Healthy Relationships, so you can create, reestablish, and sustain healthy relationships in your life.
Hello, beloved. This is Dr. Dana Carson. Thank you for lending your eyes and your ears to me for a moment. You know, the Bible says, he that has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying. I believe that as you listen to me for the next few moments, Holy Spirit will speak to your heart about possibly partnering with me in ministry. Dana Carson Kingdom Ministries is involved in taking the gospel of the kingdom around the world, and we're impacting every generation. We're impacting adults, seniors, middle age, young adults, youth, and children. Our ministry is impacting Kenya, where we educate over 500 children that are not underserved, they're unserved. Without what we provide for them, they wouldn't get an education at all. We're planting churches on 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and North America. We're writing books. We're training online with Bible courses. We're doing a great deal of ministry, and I need your help and support. Would you pray about becoming a partner? It would mean a lot to the kingdom and to me personally. You can become a partner at multiple levels. And so after I finish talking with you, if you just click the partners button, it'll tell you where and where you can get in, where you fit in. But I just want to thank you for at least listening to me, giving me your eyes and your ears. Pray about being a partner with me. Thank you, and God bless you.